Hi, guys. Welcome back to class today. We are live here on Facebook and LinkedIn and YouTube. So if you are here with us, let us know. We're going to be going live on Instagram as well with our 100% English class, our second class of the day, where I will be sharing some interview tips for you guys to have a successful interview in English. So, welcome everyone to our class. If you are here, let us know. Send me a red apple if you are here in our class, our second class of the day, as we get started with some interview tips. Okay. 23 Ednin, saludos. Hello there. Anas Can Valeria, nice to see you. Hello, hello. Manutri, hello. Nice to see you. Welcome to class today. Ready for some tips to have an interview in English. Send a red apple in English. Oh, in English. Send a red apple emoji in the comments if you are ready for some tips here. Okay, let me see here. We'll wait just a couple minutes for people to connect here to our class. Is he? Hello, Luis. Nice to see you. All right. If you are connecting for the first time, my name is Maritza, and welcome to class. This class will be 100% in English as we have many different countries connecting to this class. Lots of red apples on Instagram. Woohoo! Excellent. Okay, so to my friends on LinkedIn and Facebook, we will have this class all in English, Instagram as well. So everyone can participate in our class. Sometimes we have people from Brazil, Turkey. I think someone last week was from somewhere in Africa or Indonesia. I can't remember, but lots of different people. So 100% in English. And remember, if you want to practice English or study English with Open English, with our fantastic new promotion, 70% off your course, your English course, all you have to do to receive more information is send the word profe here in the comments. PROFE in the comments for more information about our prices, about getting 70% off, about everything you need to know about Open English. And remember that we also have a free leveling test in English that you can take, that you can take, um, where you can actually discover your level of English. So if you are here in our class thinking, what is my level of English? Well, I don't know what my level is. Send the word test, TEST, test in the comments uh, for more information about our free leveling test. So let's get started then. Tips, interview tips. So let me share my presentation here with you guys on Instagram, Facebook. Okay. So my first question for you guys is, have you ever had an interview in English, and how did it go? How did it go? All right. Let me know here in the comments. Have you ever had an interview in English? In English? And how did it go? All right. So I was just having this conversation the other day, and interviews are always kind of tricky. They're always kind of scary, no matter what language you're doing them in. So let me know, have you ever had an interview in English? Oh, looks like my dogs are going to start barking. Maria says, no. Okay, not yet. Maria, hopefully these tips will help you in the future with your uh, English. Okay. Paul Gabriel says, yes, I have. All right. Let me see. Anyone else? Anyone else? Yes, I had it. It was bad. Okay, that's okay. Okay, Lenita, yes, you've had an interview in English. All right. Vamos Madrid says, yes, was a disaster. Okay, Mary says, yes, my first interview in English was so stressful and funny. All my body was shaking. Okay, kisses from your dog. Yeah, my dog is super loud. I'm sorry if you can't hear me. Okay, there he says, yes, I've had one. So, my first tip for having an interview in English, responding to key questions. Okay, practice responding to key questions. So, number one, for example, tell me about yourself. Tell me about yourself. This question, I think, is really different, or the answer to this question can be really different when you're interviewing with someone or a company from the United States, for example. I've noticed maybe in other countries, you talk about, okay, I was born here, I grew up here, I went to college here. In the United States, it's not really common to share those kinds of details in an interview. They want really concise, so really short answers, and they want to hear about your experience. They don't really want to know about where you went to high school or where you are from all the time. It's good to mention it, but when you're talking about yourself, it's always good to really talk about your experience and what you have done. Okay, Gabrielle has a good point. It was a problem to talk about the past and use verbs in the past. So that's really important. We need to study before we go into this question, before we answer this question. How do we say these verbs in English? So here's one tip. I want you guys to look online, look on the internet for verbs. They're called power verbs or action verbs in English. Okay, ready? Power, Power, power verbs. Look online and study those verbs and their conjugations so you can talk about things in the past. In the past. Okay, let me see here. Okay, Lizette says, yes, they asked me if I can multitask. I didn't know what that meant. Okay, so multitask is when you can do different things at the same time. Different things at the same time. Okay. So, one, study this question. Tell me about yourself. But remember, keep it short and keep it related to your experience. Okay, Deborah says, "Will this class be recorded?" Yes, Deborah MN26. I am recording this class and I will upload it to Instagram after. Okay. Number 2. This question is really common as well. Could you tell me about a time when? So these are what we call situational questions in English. They want to hear exactly what happened to you and what you did. What you did. We always want to keep this positive. Could you tell me about a time when you had a disagreement? So when you didn't agree with someone at work. Could you tell me about a time you had a disagreement with a coworker and what you did to overcome that issue? So these are situational questions. They want to know exactly what your reaction would be. So it's important to study what your answer would be or practice what your answer would be. Okay, number 3, what can you bring to this role? What can you bring to this role? They want to hear, why are you the best person to that they should hire? What makes you stand out? So, if you're in this class right now, it's because you want to learn English, right? One of I was just talking to someone about this, and I think nowadays, if you comfortable with English, comfortable enough to have an interview in English, this is a huge strength you have because it means that you not only speak English or you can communicate in English, but you also speak another language. I think sometimes people are so afraid of what they can't do that they forget about what they can do. So this is really important to mention in an interview. I think a lot of times too, we're waiting for to sound perfect in English, but really you can communicate in English. That's huge. You should always try and present that as a strength. Nowadays, In the United States, for example, people want bilingual workers. They're not looking for just native English speakers. They want different bilingual people from around the world. Now that we're working remote, they want people that speak Portuguese and English. They want people that speak English and Spanish or English and Mandarin. So this is definitely a positive to include during your interview to talk about the fact you learned English or you are learning English. Now, Sam says, I want to study. Remember, if you want to study with Open English, all you have to do is send the word profile, PROFE, here in the comments for more information. Okay, and of course, the question that people always ask, this is a super common question, and that is, what are your biggest strengths? So what do you do well? And what are your biggest weaknesses? This one is always difficult in your native language or in English as well. So strengths, we always want to talk about our positive attributes, things we do well. And at the same time, we want to demonstrate, we want to show exactly how we use that strength in the past. For example, I'm interviewing for a customer service role. I would say my biggest strength is my ability to communicate with clients. In my previous position, I was able to achieve a 95% client retention rate. So you're not just saying, I'm a good communicator, I'm a good listener, I like people. We want to show exactly what we have done in the past that proves that we are actually good at the job. Okay, biggest weaknesses. This one's tricky. No one likes talking about what they're bad at or what they need to work on. So, uh, biggest weaknesses, you could say, I have a hard time prioritizing tasks, but I am working with a special software that helps me stay organized. So when you talk about your weaknesses, always talk about what you are doing to improve those weaknesses. Okay. All right. So that was our first tip. Lots of tips here. All right. Tip number two. Tip number two. Study general key vocabulary. All right. So while we talk about our key vocabulary, tell me here in the comments, do you have a copy of your resume in English? Send a blue heart if you do. Do you have a copy of your resume in English? Send a blue heart if you do. Send me here in the comments if you have a copy. So, general key vocabulary would be, for example, those power verbs I mentioned, power and action verbs to talk about the past. Verbs like hire, hire. This is to uh, offer someone the job. This is to um, have someone working with you, to hire someone. It would be like contratar in Spanish. Resume, of course, your resume, which lists all of your experience, your education that you give to a company during the job hiring process. Number three, very important, salary. Salary. You want to know this word. What are you going to get paid? We need to talk about your salary. And number four, another important word in English would be offer. Offer. All right. So here on LinkedIn, Everton, Maria Luisa, do you guys have your resume in English? Let me know here. Who else was here on LinkedIn? Maria Polito, do you have your resume in English? A copy of your resume in English? Okay. So it looks like some of you do. A few of you do. So it's a little tricky. It can be difficult to translate your resume, but uh, I will, I will, my best recommendation would not to be translate it word for word, word for word. Okay, so Maria says, yes, you've got a copy of your resume in English. Excellent. All right then. So moving along here, so we don't run out of time. Tip number 3, practice with a mock interview. A mock interview. So remember, mock in English is like a pretend, a false or a pretend interview. This is really important so that you can start feeling what it would be like to actually talk to someone about your experience. So the good news is that in open English, you can actually practice with native English speaking teachers, native English speaking teachers. So this is great because you can have a live session with a native English speaker, one-on-one in a private class, and you can say, I need to practice for an interview. Can you help me? Can we do a mock interview? So remember, in open English, we have that option as well. So send the word profe, P-R-O-F-E, so you can speak with or practice with a native English speaking professor. All right, so definitely practice with someone. It doesn't always have to be an English teacher, but that would help. But anyone that you feel comfortable speaking in English with. So who do you like to practice English with? Let me know in the comments. Who do you like to practice English with? Do you have a friend that you like to practice with? Do you have a coworker you like to practice English with? Is there anyone you enjoy practicing with? Okay. For example, when I was learning Spanish, I practiced a lot with my husband, with my friends, with my coworkers. Tried to find anyone who would speak with me in English, even if my Spanish wasn't good. Okay. Perez Mendoza says, with myself. Okay. That's okay too. Okay. Raquel said, I would like to practice with my boyfriend. Raquel, does your boyfriend speak English? Even if he doesn't, that could be something fun you start to learn together. Okay. My friends, let me know that. Excellent. You've got some English speaking friends. Very good. All right. So tip number 3, always try and practice. I think sometimes if we write down our answers, we know what we're going to say. It can be difficult when you are looking at another person and then you have to speak. So always practice beforehand. Okay. Karina likes to practice English with her brother. Very good. Maria says with the professor. Excellent. All right, guys. So let's move on. Tip number 4. Tip number 4. Send me a thumbs up if you have learned something new or if you are liking these tips. Send me a thumbs up. Let me know what you think about these tips. Okay. Tip number 4. Practice repeating numbers and dates. Practice repeating numbers and dates. This is really important as well. So we may think, okay, I practice the verbs in the past tense. I know how to talk about my experience now in English, but I think something we tend to forget about are talking or how to talk about numbers and dates. This will be super important to talk about your past experience. So, for example, in June of 2019, I started my job as a lawyer in Atlanta, Georgia. I worked there for 4 months. So just in that quick sentence, we have 2 different numbers and 2 contexts we need to talk about. So to talk about benefits and salary. So of course, between countries, the salaries are different. I remember when I moved to Colombia, I was like, I'm gonna be a millionaire. I'm gonna earn millions of pesos. Wow. And it was very different than the salary in the United States. So you should be sure that you know how to express those numbers, especially if they ask you, what would you like to earn at this job? What do you want your pay to be? Your salary expectations. Okay, let me see. Teacher, are you on Instagram? Lenita, yes, I am on Instagram, but I don't know if you can find me. Ha ha ha. All right, Patty, I like your tips. Patty, I like that you are here. Okay, so let me see here. And if you are applying to an international company, don't forget to investigate what kinds of benefits they offer. Remember, the word benefits in English refers to health insurance, retirement, vacation time. That's all part of the package. We call salary and benefits a package in English, a package in English. Okay, so I wanted to once again plug Open English and say Open English actually has a dedicated section of professional English on the platform. So there are different kind of job areas. So marketing, sales, nutrition, technology. So we have these different categories on the platform. So you can start saying vocabulary from those fields. Okay, I'm getting sidetracked, but that's an important extra tip. Remember, career is all of your job experience. But what you actually work in is the field. So I could say I have had a long career as a um, as a trying to think of an example, an electrical engineer. My field is engineering. Electrical engineering is more specific, but the field is the general area you work in. So we have different fields on the Open English platform that you can practice with so you can see specific phrases, vocabulary, and verbs related to your actual work. Okay, Chopper Fabia, is it correct if you ask the salary in the first interview? This one is tricky. This one is tricky. I would say first interview, I would say that it's probably not appropriate to bring it up as the person that's being interviewed. If the interviewer, the person doing the interview, brings it up or talks about it, that's fine to answer. But just asking about the salary at the first interview can be either hit or miss, as we say. It can be good or bad. I think now companies are being more transparent about their salaries, but it's still something to kind of be careful with. Okay, I think we had another question here. How do we say una nueva carrera? Carolina, we would say, I'm going to study depends on the context. I could say, I'm going to start a new degree. If you're still in university, you could say, I'm going to start a new degree. I'm going to start studying a new field um, of medicine or a new field of engineering. All right, Roman says, what's your name? My name is Maritza. Okay, I think I got all your questions there. Don Haido, hello. Just in time for our last tip. Our last tip. Okay. Doo-doo-doo. Last tip. Tip number 5. If your interview isn't face to face, we say face to face when you're in the same room, or it's like presencial, when you're actually physically together, prepare notes. Prepare notes. So I think when people are talking in another language and they're answering questions, sometimes it can be uh you have so much going on, so much you're thinking about that you just talk and talk and talk and talk and talk. Uh, so it's important to take notes so you kind of stick to your points. So you don't just start talking and talking and talking about nothing. It's good to have notes. However, big tip here, big tip. My advice is do not write out word for word exactly what you are going to say. For example, I mentioned study common questions, but don't write out the exact thing you're going to say. It sounds really natural. Someone can tell really easily if you are just reading something. So have some notes, have some ideas to keep you on track, to keep you focused on the question, but don't write them word for word. Okay, Marta, yes, this class is a little advanced since we are doing this in 100% in English, but don't worry. You can sit here, practice listening to English, and don't forget our other classes we do in Spanish and English. Okay, so prepare notes. I usually have some notes on my computer written out, like, okay, what do I want to talk about from my experience? What exactly, what results and achievements can I talk about? And have those notes, but don't don't read word for word. Don't write a long paragraph and just be, "Hi, my name is Maritza. I am from Mexico City. I worked as an." It's really easy to hear when someone's just reading it. It doesn't sound like your authentic self. So, my last question for you guys is, what do you think is the most difficult part of a job interview in English or in general? What is the most difficult aspect for you for a job interview? Solange, I'm a native English speaker, so I didn't learn well, I did at some point, but English is my first language. Okay. Can I get a certain discount for being a student at UANL? OSFAG? Send the word profe, PROFE, in the comments so we can get you more information about that specific question. Okay, the pronunciation of the other person is the most complicated. Lily Mendoza, my suggestion to you is, my tip for you is I would find some videos on YouTube. That's super easy. Find some videos on YouTube of an actual job interview so you can start listening or practice listening to that different pronunciation. Okay, controlling the nerves, Raquel. I am always a nervous mess, even with interviews in English. It's so it's so nerve-wracking, as we say. So that's really quite normal. Just take a deep breath. And I think that sometimes now in job interviews, people appreciate when you say, I'm sorry, I'm a little nervous, or I'm sorry, um, I got ahead of myself, or I got lost. It's good to kind of acknowledge where maybe you might have stumbled or where you might have had a difficult time with something. But the important thing is to get back out there and continue the conversation. Okay, let me see. Breaking the ice, Mary says, breaking the ice can be difficult. Kind of like, hey, how's that weather? Yeah, it can be a little awkward. Okay. Solange, all right, I'm so glad this is helping you. So biggest tips of all in an interview is be prepared to show what you have what you have done in your job, specific examples. This is so important. They say that uh, people want to see what you've worked on, but what you personally have actually done. So be sure to study and practice that in English. Talk about numbers, experiences, achievements. What have you done well in jobs? Really, really important. Okay. I think if the interview talks too fast, that's a big problem. Mary, I think that's um, a big kind of concern for a lot of people. What if they just talk and I don't understand? I think it's important to always mention to people if they're talking too fast. For example, here on these lives, you guys have told me, "Can you slow down? You're talking really fast." Um, So it's okay to ask people to repeat the question. It's okay to ask someone to speak a little slower. No one will be offended. And asking someone to speak slower doesn't mean your level of English is bad or your level of English isn't good enough. Um, it can even happen to native English speakers like, "Wait, what? Say that again? I didn't catch that. Can you repeat that?" So don't be afraid to speak up and say something. Okay, let me see here. Okay, the most difficult thing in an interview is talking about yourself. Chapter 5 again. Yes, it is difficult. It can feel awkward, but it's always good to talk about kind of how you would fit into the job. What do you have to offer to a job? That's the biggest thing. Okay. Is it possible for a person over 57 years old to learn English? Efrain Mejia, of course it is. Of course it is. I always say that there's no restriction in age. There's no really big barrier for someone that wants to learn English at an older age. I think you can learn at any age. Okay, everyone. Well, that concludes our class today. I hope you guys enjoyed those tips, my best interview tips. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Remember, if you need more information about Open English, about our 70% off discount so you can practice speaking with native English speakers, send the word PROFE, PROFE, here in the comments for more information. Or you can also send the word test, TEST, in the comments to take a free leveling English test. And don't forget, we will be back here tomorrow at 11 a.m. with Teacher Chris with our class in both English and Spanish. So I hope to see you guys all here tomorrow with Teacher Chris. Let me see, what are we going to be talking about tomorrow? Tomorrow we will be talking about vocabulary, finance vocabulary. So this could help in a job interview. So thank you everyone for tuning in, and we will see you next time. Take care, everyone.